There was a time when relationships were built on trust, traditions, and values. If we go back 5 or 6 decades, men and women had completely different approaches to dating and relationships. Men used to approach women, and women were considerate, receptive, and respectful of men. However, it's not the same anymore. So much has changed. But we really need to ask the question of why men don't approach women anymore. Why do men avoid approaching women? What has changed over these decades that men would rather use other ways to interact with women, but not directly approach them? Let's find out. Once upon a time, there was no internet, no smartphone and social media, and no way to instantly get in touch with women regardless of your distance from them. During those days, since there was no other way to interact with women, men used to approach women physically and directly show their interest in them. He had to follow the social norms of dressing up nicely and even speaking to her parents before he could actually take her out on a date. Today, guys can get in touch with girls from anywhere they want, whenever they want, and that goes for women too. It took quite a bit of work during those times. You had to plan the whole thing. It was simpler, and I guess a bit more exciting. You didn't have the luxury to check her out on social media, so you probably had a mental image of someone you saw and liked. And that's what drove men to physically visit the woman and ask permission to spend time with her. Also during those times, people mostly dated within their own communities because that's how it worked back then. The distance was a real issue, unlike today. You can get in touch with someone from across the world and get to know them online in real time. So, men and women both did not have such luxuries back then and did not have the luxury of being able to interact with just about anyone they liked. Back then, it was serious business. Communication was limited. Guys had 1 or max 2 opportunities to meet women and get to know them before they could get married to them. This is why guys had to approach women, because otherwise they had no other option. And this is why the level of connection, chemistry, and ability to understand each other was far higher than today. Because today we have so many distractions around us. Someone looking for someone on social media would like someone, but probably like 5 other people as well. They would have half-hearted conversations online, and even during dating, they'd still be engrossed in their phones trying to get the perfect click for the gram or speaking on a group chat. I mean, we are super connected now as compared to before, yet we are utterly disconnected from each other and our realities. It's crazy. So, why aren't men approaching women anymore? I think it's because men usually see the pros and cons of everything before they take any action. And the cons of approaching women these days are far higher than the pros. Today, approaching women nearly always results in humiliation, being called a perv, or just being ignored and socially shunned. Why? Because most males are perceived by women as predators or desperate men. They will be fine if they already know a guy and want him to contact them, but that is another matter. Yet it is simply not worthwhile for a male to approach an unidentified woman. Too many risks exist. Social embarrassment, total ignorance, and a generalized dread of rejection all seem too risky. The average woman would embarrass the average guy more frequently than not if he politely approached her to start a discussion. I saw a video where a man tries to speak to a lady without being impolite or weird, and she just makes a complete fool of him. For giggles and attention, and maybe taking a shot at being viral, the woman published the contact to social media after fabricating the story that he was a weirdo. As I saw this unfold, I found myself wondering why in the world I would want to approach a lady today. We also need to realize that various guys are treated differently by different women in order to comprehend why this is taking place. So let me clarify what this implies, since I know you might be confused about it. I want you guys to consider the status and how one's perceived worth affects how they are treated. Consider instances in your own life where you were approached by a beggar or a homeless person who appeared disheveled. You immediately went on the defensive and decided not to communicate with them or offer them anything. The same is true for women, although today's situation is far worse than it was a century ago. Women must always exercise additional caution, since they may at any time be seized against their will by a male. The issue arises, though, when you witness a woman publicly humiliating a man for just speaking to her while she is out in a public place with a large group of onlookers and knows she is somewhat secure. So, if we dig a little further, we can only deduce that contemporary women no longer appreciate the typical male or men in general. Returning to my subject of status, do you believe a woman would treat someone like Elon Musk or some rich billionaire the same way if she is known for showing disdain for the average and below-average men that approach her? Absolutely not. Elon Musk is an established billionaire with prestige, power, and authority. That woman wouldn't dare insult or degrade men who is unquestionably superior to her. As a result, as you can see, everything ultimately comes down to a man's standing and perceived value, depending on how he acts, speaks, and approaches the woman. A woman will treat various guys differently depending on how she sees them, as I mentioned previously. And if she doesn't think the man is superior to her, she'll treat him like he's worthless or inferior. On the other hand, if she believes that a guy is superior to her, she would treat him with respect and be more accepting of him. Take a look at how a lady and her employer interact. Now imagine who she'd treat with respect if they approached her, the boss or the janitor. It's very clear that contemporary women no longer respect men. And I believe that the majority of guys have realized this and have chosen not to engage in conversation with these women. Today, men have decided to just not to indulge in any behavior that allows women to disrespect and invalidate them. Women's behavior towards men has just gone down the drain, and men have realized this. They have chosen their reputation, integrity, and respect over the disrespect and humiliation extended by women towards them. Seriously, I'd be much better off not approaching women because I swear, I've heard stories of women calling the police over guys approaching them. Obviously, there was nothing wrong with the guys. It was just that they did not fit their profile in the looks and money departments. So, why would I or anyone put myself through something like this? It doesn't make sense. Also, I think a very high percentage of women are just not even worth approaching anymore. I think that's what they want, to be publicly valued by men, so they can show off in their circles, humiliate the guy, and feel validated, which she isn't in any part of her life. Can modern women even be approached? If you want to be contacted, you need to appear approachable. Otherwise, people will take one look at you and decide not to approach you, much less engage in conversation. And today's women carry themselves in public as if they were some sort of royalty. Another reason why men don't approach women anymore is how women behave in public. They are just not very approachable in the sense that they give off a vibe that says, "Don't bother me." I mean, if a guy had a really angry expression all the time that basically said, "Do not come near me," would any woman approach that guy? Not at all. The same thing applies to women in public and private settings. If a man sees a woman he likes and wants to start a conversation with, and she looks cold and closed off, he will assume she doesn't want to talk to anyone, and he wouldn't want to approach that woman. That is how important smiling and looking inviting with open body language is. But modern women don't care and aren't willing to change. So likewise, men are just not going to approach, and that's that. So, whenever men see women they like, and even if they want to approach her, her body language and expression turn them away. And then women complain that guys don't approach them anymore. Ladies, if you want someone to approach you, at least work on yourself to have a better and more pleasant look. You don't have to look like you're going to burst with rage any moment all the time. Otherwise, men are just going to ignore you, even if you want them to approach you. Men are just done with the BS and the unreasonable demands of women. Women don't want a guy who is ugly. They don't want someone driving an old, unfashionable car. And they don't want someone who doesn't have something that's on a woman's checklist. Do you see what I mean? And yet they go about cheating on men who have all the things that they want. So men have begun to realize all of this and wake up. They don't have time to waste on women who make sure that it's meaningless to even interact with them. For men, the game is basically rigged, and women don't seem to realize this. They want what they want, and men are not going to indulge in tolerating women's inhospitable attitudes anymore. Men will therefore just enjoy their free time while working hard, avoid distractions, and happily follow their passions. They are better off engaging with women online to determine who they can spend their time with because they have more possibilities now. Thanks for watching The Circle of Kings. Show us your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel.